Joining us now, WUSA 9 Chief Investigative Reporter Eric Flack, which must mean, Flack, that either something terrible has happened somewhere or there's an RFK update. And thankfully for us,
RFK.
there is an RFK update.
Let's talk RFK.
Let's do it. So, Steve Daines had been holding up the ability for RFK to even be considered by the entire Senate. Nevertheless, ultimately, if this thing gets out of Congress and to DC, where we can decide for ourselves, because we're grown adults, damn it. What changed for Steve Daines, the senator from nowhere close to here that had been holding up this entire process over the last couple of weeks?
You know what? Months? Yeah, what he would tell you changed is that his constituent, and you talked about how far Montana is from Washington, D.C., he always claimed and contended that he was involved in this because the artist, the family, the originator of the old Redskins logo, the Native American head, was created by a member of the Blackfeet tribe in Montana, and that the family, although so many people found the name and some people found the logo offensive, the family itself, the descendants of this person who created the logo, was very offended that they had kind of moved away from it. And Daines, who has, like, in recent weeks, taken this as an anti-woke, platform, that this was just woke gone wrong, said, I'm going to oppose this RFK bill until the franchise, the Washington Commanders, honor this logo and bring back the logo. And he wanted to do so on behalf of the family. And the family had many demands, lofty demands that were likely unrealistic, including the logo being brought back in uniforms. The team had negotiated, I've been told, with this family going back long before Daines, and finally, before a game earlier this season, they honored the logo. If you actually go to the club level of Northwest Stadium now, there is a whole display, a whole little kind of like museum to this logo and the history of that logo in the Blackfeet tribe. And what Daines said was that, it wasn't everything he was looking for, but kind of dramatically said the day of this vote in the Senate committee, I spoke with the grandson of Blackie Wetzel from the Blackfeet tribe in Montana just this morning. And he said, I am satisfied. So because he is satisfied, I am satisfied as Senator Daines. And while I, put them on notice that I want to continue to make sure they continue to honor this logo in the right way, I am now voting in favor of this bill that to advance it into the full Senate for a vote. So, what he said changed was basically that the team had come around, for lack of a better term, and that he could now get on board because his constituents were on board.
Okay, whatever you say, Senator. Sure.
He could have done this a while ago. There's a question about whether or not, if he hadn't done this, would in fact the bill have gotten a hearing a lot earlier, and we wouldn't be in this time crunch. I've actually recently been told by people close to the situation that even with Daines' opposition, there were life events that actually conspired to stop this that went beyond Steve Daines. Apparently, the bill really was supposed to get hearings at other times, but like there was a hurricane in North Carolina, you'll remember, that diverted. There were other world events and so this person who's close to it said it really wasn't just Daines; it was also just a lot of bad luck that has left us where we are right now.
That's interesting, but I also Daines have just been whatever he's been the last bunch of months, years at those hearings too, but whatever. Right. It's here now. Eric Flack with us, WUSA 9 Chief Investigative Reporter. So Daines lets it go. It gets voted on in the committee. It passes the committee, which means now it needs a hearing in the full Senate. And as you mentioned, Eric, we are running out of time. I think those of us that pay attention to politics kind of know how this works. Anything that is happening in December outside of defense bills and spending is going to hopefully or is hoping to get attached to one of those two things, because then you get these big giant omnibus bills that everyone hates because they all lament the pork barrel this and this, and then they all do it again every single year. So what are the chances and what needs to happen for this RFK bill to be attached to one of those other things and thus give it a chance at passing?
Yeah, and now if you're a Washington Commanders fan who wants the team back at RFK, back in DC, you are a big fan of pork barrel bills, because that's exactly what we want to be right now.
Quick,
There's
someone stick DC statehood on one of those things too. Wait, did I say that part out loud?
You can. I'm not sure that that one is going to be able to slide through as quietly as they hope RFK slides through. Listen, there's a lot of momentum right now. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell in town for the Titans game mysteriously ended up on Capitol Hill on Monday, alongside.
I'm starting to think, Eric, he might have not come for the Titans game.
Do you think he just was trying to save on plane tickets and just decided to do it all at once? But he was in that box with Josh Harris and DC Mayor Muriel Bowser. They were all high-fiving, smiling. The next day, he is on Capitol Hill with Josh Harris. They are meeting with a number of Senate leaders, pushing for, as the team said, this specific bill and other issues. But really, this RFK Stadium bill is the one that matters most, and the one that the league is focused on really as much as the team. Keep in mind, we reported that the NFL has had its lobbyists on this RFK issue really dating back to last December. I mean, this is not new to them. The NFL has behind the scenes been pushing for DC to at least have the right to be part of this discussion with long-term control of the RFK site. We now know that this is down to the wire, and it will be up. And I think what the NFL commissioner, what Josh Harris was up on Capitol Hill Monday trying to do, was to convince people to just attach it to this bill. Likely the spending bill. It could be a defense bill as well, but the spending bill is the one we know has to get passed in some form or fashion. No standalone bill is going to get a hearing at this point, which is why all of these smaller bills, and the RFK bill will not be the only one, gets attached to these larger bills. It is ultimately up to Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, a Democrat, because we are still under the control from the last election, not the election that just happened. So all of that, those political winds will change in January. But for right now, until the end of the session, for the next couple of weeks, it really all goes through Majority Leader Chuck Schumer from New York's office. So these things happen behind closed doors. Obviously, there's going to be negotiations on whether or not he will ultimately allow it. I'm told by people who are close to this that, on its face, this is a very uncontroversial idea. This is not something like statehood, if we want to use that as an example, where people are on both sides. There are a smattering of opponents for really random reasons here and there. But for the most part, this is a very germane, unoffensive land bill. This is a land bill. That's all it is. And if you think about it, outside of our little DMV, our little commander's bubble, people in Montana, in Illinois, in Wisconsin, and Texas, they don't care about this. They literally could give two you-know-whats about who controls the RFK site, whether it's DC government or the federal government. And so, on its surface, it is a not controversial idea. The only question now is, does politics get in the way? Why would it get in the way? And ultimately, will Chuck Schumer allow this to be inserted in? And I guess, would there be any 11th hour opposition from Maryland senators who are concerned about the Commanders leaving FedEx Field and or Northwest Stadium and what would happen to that site in Prince George's County? Anybody from Virginia still holding out hope they would come out there. But there's so much momentum that I think once it gets into the bill, that's the biggest challenge at this point.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's such a great point that this is a land bill. And by the way, if this land was in Virginia or Maryland, it would be different. Like the federal government, I mean, I guess
Wouldn't
if it
know.
was federal land somewhere, there perhaps could be a status where a federal land needs to get released by Congress somewhere else outside of the district. But then at least there would be senators from that state to argue on said state's behalf. This is very, very silly, all of it, and that's why I made the statehood joke in the first place. Because if DC was a
Yeah.
state, then we wouldn't have to worry about any of this. It also is worth pointing out that Schumer, obviously from New York, you would imagine he's got pretty deep relationships with a company like the NFL, an entity like the NFL that is based in New York. And that actually did pop another thought into my head, because Roger Goodell was not the only commissioner at the game on Sunday, Eric. Do we know if like the NBA is involved at all in this? Like, was Adam Silver, who's not exactly easy to hide, he's very tall, was he involved in any of this? Because there also has been all this talk about other teams and like the Spirit have talked about this. I think the cricket team came out the other day saying like, hey, we'd love to have some kind of facility at this RFK site. Like, are there other players besides the NFL, as if you need anyone more powerful than the NFL, but the NFL, the city of the District of Columbia, the Commanders involved here?
I'm going to start by saying I don't know exactly why Adam Silver was there, and then I'm going to follow it up with a fact. I don't know exactly why Adam Silver was there. Here's a fact. The agreement that Ted Leonsis has with Washington, D.C. over the $515 million of taxpayer money to fix up Capital One includes a provision for finding a new practice facility. Option
Right.
A was Gallery Place. They studied that. That's unfeasible. They are now looking for land. RFK has been specifically named in the language as one of the options for a practice area. The last time, and I saw you there when Ted was having that availability about the money being approved, I tried to ask him, was he still interested in the RFK? The question got cut off, and as he walked away, he didn't answer the question. So RFK, the idea of RFK for some sort of a Wizards practice facility is not like people just making things up. That's
Right.
in language that Ted was interested in. Is there room for a Commanders, RFK 2.0 and a practice facility, and is there any world in which Josh Harris and Ted Leonsis are going to like share land in some way, shape, or form and be neighbors, with the amount of, things we hear about, rivalries, I'll just say, between owners in general.
Yeah.
Those are all questions that seem like those would be things that would need to get resolved. But Ted certainly has his sights on the potential for a new practice facility, and RFK has been mentioned. I think it is clear that option A for Washington, D.C. is to have a new football stadium there.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And you think about the things that we're going to miss out on, such as the World Cup coming because of the stadium situation.
Unbelievable. I'm still not over the World Cup thing.
Yeah, so whether it's major concerts, whether it is World Cups, whether it is other world sporting events, having a world-class stadium in the district obviously would go a long way. So
at least,
go ahead, Eric.
At least Kendrick and SZA are coming, though.
I almost said that. That wasn't asked today.
So we are turning it around.
If Kendrick is coming, then actually everything's fine. We're doing great. They've already made enough upgrades to Northwest Stadium that just stay there. Sure, why not? All right, if this thing, Eric Flack with us for another minute or two here on the Hoffman Show. Eric, of course, the chief investigative reporter at WUSA 9, and has been following the RFK story as well as anyone for the now many years. We were joking in the press box the other day, Eric. I think Michael Phillips and Rick Snyder have a bet on where the next stadium is going to be. They bet lunch on it in 2014.
Really? No kidding.
Yeah.
That far back?
Yeah. I didn't even live here. I've almost lived here for 10 years. I didn't live here yet.
Snyder started it a long, long, long time ago. And it really got heated up again 2 years before Snyder left. But yeah, that makes sense. So 10 years ago, a decade-old bet, and it will be settled in another 5 years.
Yes, just they'll be on their walkers going into the Cracker Barrel or something. Sorry, Michael and Rick. That was me. It's been a long time. That was the point of the joke. Not that either of you are old. All right, so what was my last question? Oh,
I don't know, but it wasn't my joke. So you're gonna
how much longer could we be waiting? In fact, that is actually the question, because I think we've both done some reporting on this in terms of, hey, like, when's the drop dead date in terms of you just give up on RFK? Because you could have Landover 2.0 and start construction tomorrow because you own the land. Virginia is like ready to give you $1 billion any day you want. But they want RFK, but eventually you just go like, all right, this is not going to happen. And whether it's the changing political tides next year when the new Congress is in session or whatever other things they are considering, is this it? If they don't get it through this year, do they move on to something else because they have to, because 2028, when this lease is up, is not getting any closer, or is getting closer, is not getting any farther away, or do they make one more run at it? And if that means they don't open a new stadium until like 2031 or 2032, then so be it, as long as it's at RFK.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'm not sure that they even know. And I really honestly, from the people I talk to, I think it's ultimately going to be up to 1.5 people, meaning Josh Harris and, I'm sure Markine, Mitch Rails, Magic will have a vote, but ultimately it's majority owner, and it's Harris. I think the time, from the people I've spoke with, is becoming an issue. Somebody said, we're already looking at 2030 now. So we're looking now. If that is, you either get DC or you decide on Maryland or Virginia next year. If you take another year for DC, you're talking now every year, you're pushing it back a year. I mean, that's just the reality of it. And that's best case scenario. And without any guarantees that it's going to be any different.
Right. You could just be pushing back Maryland or Virginia a year because you don't get it.
And to the extent that those conversations were happening on Capitol Hill yesterday, and to the extent that they were like, what about this year? What does next year look like? Maybe what happened, some of the conversations they're having now is really is framing what they would do in the worst case scenario. But the question is, do they move on? And I don't think anybody knows yet. I do believe that they are solely focused on the next couple weeks, and they will cross that bridge when they come to it. What I know from my reporting and talking to people is that they are concerned about the time. And, I was not there. I heard it was not a full stadium. I don't know if you're out there against the Titans.
I was,
Was it a full stadium?
Getting in and out Sunday was the easiest it has been all year.
Okay. So, and that's still a team that, despite a couple losses, is really, really in the thick. That stadium is still a problem, and they recognize it. And they got to do something about it. And I think they're business people about that. So while I don't think we know, I think they're focused on these next couple weeks. And I think DC is the first choice. And I think if they get the land, I truly believe in my heart of hearts they work out the money. I think if they don't get DC, I think they got a really tough decision. I know they're worried about the time.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I will say, they have done a tremendous job with that stadium. It looks so much better now than it did when they took over a year and a half ago. But I think the stain of, it's that place, like, that's kind of going to be on it until the day that it closes. And there's no nostalgia of this dump is our dump, because nobody has any good memories there outside of like one RG3 game in 2012, unless you were there for the Hail Mary for Jaden a couple weeks ago. So
it is the definition of lipstick on a pig. It really is. And there's only so
very
much
nice lipstick.
Really nice lipstick. Like,
so
Chanel
credit Josh.
That's a thing.
Hey, Harris, your lipstick choice is fantastic, dude.
I mean, it's the best lipstick money can buy, but it's still being put on a pig. And I think even they, behind closed doors, know that.
A hog, you might say.
How did I miss that?
I don't know. It was right there. It was right there. Hey, that's 1 for 2 on jokes for me. So, we'll take what we can get. Eric Flack, he's a serious newsman, chief investigative reporter, WUSA 9. You can catch all his reporting at their website, WUSA9.com. And of course, on your television. Eric, always appreciate the time. Thank you so much, sir.
Hey, I appreciate you, Hoffman. Later.
What's up, kiddos? It's your boy Clinton Yates from ESPN. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Tell your mama I said what's up.